The first time my family tried to steal from me, my grandmother was still warm in the ground. I'm not being dramatic. I'm Madison Cole. I'm 34, live in Columbus, Ohio. And for 3 years, my life revolved around my grandmother's pill organizers, doctor appointments, and whether the stupid Medicare portal would crash again before I could upload her paperwork. I bathed her. I changed her. I slept on her old floral couch when she was scared to be alone at night. And the people who didn't show up for any of that? They showed up for the will. This is how my whole extended family tried to bully me into signing away what my grandmother left me, and how I walked into probate court with a lawyer, flipped the script on all of them, and watched their family values disappear the second a judge started asking real questions. My life with Grandma Ruth. My grandma's name was Ruth Cole, but everyone on our street called her Miss Ruth from Maple Drive. Her house was one of those classic Midwestern places, one-story brick ranch, tiny front porch with a faded American flag, plastic chairs that never matched, and an azalea bush that refused to die, no matter how many Ohio winters tried to kill it. When I was a kid, holidays at Grandma Ruth's meant green bean casserole, Pillsbury crescent rolls, and my cousins and I fighting over who got to push the button on the old electric carving knife. She'd put the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade on the old box TV and holler from the kitchen, "Madison, make sure your brother doesn't lick the whipped cream nozzle again." Then life did what it does. My parents divorced. My brother moved to Florida. My cousins scattered across the country. Uncle Rob and Aunt Denise stopped coming around except to drop off Christmas gifts that looked suspiciously like they'd been grabbed last minute from the Target clearance aisle. But Grandma Ruth stayed on Maple Drive. Around the time I turned 30, her health went from "she's slowing down" to "someone has to be there every day or something bad is going to happen." It started small. She'd forget where she left her keys. Then she left a burner on. Then she missed a blood pressure pill and ended up in the ER with her feet so swollen she couldn't get her slippers on. My aunts and uncles reacted the way they always do when things get messy, by calling a family group chat and hoping vibes would pay the medical bills. The first message came from Aunt Denise. "We all need to step up for Mom. Maybe take turns checking on her. We're family." I typed back, "I already stop by after work most days. I can take her to appointments on my days off." Uncle Rob responded with a thumbs-up emoji and, "That's great, Mads. You're so good with her." And that was it. Turns out taking turns meant Madison does everything, and we send heart emojis. I became the one who drove her to her cardiologist in downtown Columbus every other Tuesday. Spent Sundays filling her pill organizers for the week. Sat on the phone with the pharmacy arguing over prior authorizations. Cleaned the fridge when she forgot she'd already bought milk 3 times. My life shrank to fit around hers. I'd wake up at 6 a.m., throw on leggings, stop at Starbucks for a venti cold brew, and head to Maple Drive before my remote marketing job started. I'd set up my laptop at her kitchen table, answer emails, while she watched Wheel of Fortune reruns in the living room. Sometimes she'd call out, "Madison, who in their right mind buys a vowel that early?" And I'd roll my eyes. But I'd be smiling. I wiped her tears when she got her first walker. I talked her through signing up for hospice when the doctor finally used the word decline, like it was an item on a grocery list. Where was everyone else? Uncle Rob sent a DoorDash order once a month and called that helping with meals. Aunt Denise posted throwback photos of Grandma on Facebook with captions like, "Our rock, our queen," and crying emojis. Then didn't show up for the actual doctor appointments. My cousins? They'd text, "How's Nana?" from brunch in Chicago or Miami, and feel like they'd done their part. But every night, when I pulled the quilt up to Grandma's chin and kissed her forehead, it was my face she saw, my voice she heard. "Madison," she whispered once, her fingers like paper over mine. You're the only one who really stayed. I'm not going anywhere, I told her. Promise. I meant it. I just didn't know yet that it was going to cost me a war. 2. The last conversation. The night before she died, the hospice nurse had just left. The air in the bedroom smelled like rubbing alcohol and lavender lotion. The oxygen machine hummed like a sad little air conditioner. I sat on the edge of her bed, balancing a bowl of vanilla ice cream. Her request, even though she barely ate now. She took 2 tiny bites, then set the spoon down. Her hands trembled, but her eyes were clear in a way they hadn't been in weeks. Madison. Yeah. Nana? I talked to the lawyer. I blinked. What lawyer? She smiled, a little conspiratorial. The one from church? Pastor Jim's niece. The one who helped me with that HOA nonsense when they tried to fine me for my sunflower flag. Oh? I remembered her ranting about the HOA trying to say her yard gnome collection violated aesthetic guidelines. She'd won that one. She squeezed my fingers. I changed my will. My chest tightened. Nana, we don't have to talk about that. I'm dying. She cut in bluntly. I may be old, but I'm not stupid, and I'm not leaving my house and every dime I have to a pack of people who only show up when there's ham. I snorted despite myself. Nana, I left most of it to you, she said, ignoring the warning in my tone. The house, my savings, the CDs at the credit union. You'll see the details when the lawyer reads it. I put something aside for your brother and the others, so no one can scream I forgot them. But the bulk, it's yours. The words hit me like a freight train. Nana, no, they're going to be mad, she finished. Let them be. Where were they when I had to choose between my heart meds and fixing the leaky roof? Who drove me to the ER at 2 a.m. when I couldn't breathe? You know I didn't do any of that to get... My voice cracked. To get anything. Her eyes softened. I know exactly why you did it. You did it because you have a good heart, which is exactly why I had to do this before I get any worse. You would never ask for a thing. So I decided for you. Tears blurred my vision. Nana, they're going to say I manipulated you or something. Her jaw tightened, the old steel surfacing. Let them sit in that courtroom and say it to my lawyer's face. I met with her twice, alone. We went over every line in that will, and I initialed every page. She's very fussy about that. A small smirk. Like you. I laughed through a sob. She shifted, wincing. One more thing. Promise me something. Anything. Don't let them guilt you out of it. They will try. They'll say family and Ruth would want this, and we should all be equal. She paused, catching her breath. Ruth wants you taken care of, she said firmly. Ruth watched you spend your 30s in this ugly floral bedroom instead of on dates or trips or whatever women your age are supposed to do. Ruth is okay with being the villain in a few Facebook posts if it means her girl has a home and a cushion. Her hand fumbled on the bedside table until her fingers brushed her old iPhone. I recorded a video, she added, explaining my choices. My lawyer has a copy, and there's one on here. She tapped the phone. If they corner you, you play it, right in their faces. I swallowed hard. Nana, promise me, Madison, no signing anything on the spot. No, okay, fine, if it makes everyone happy. Her eyes bored into mine. They weren't here at 3 a.m. when my lungs felt like they were on fire. You were. You earned every bit of this. Promise. My voice was barely a whisper. I promise. She relaxed, sinking deeper into the pillows. Good, she murmured. Now hand me the remote. If I'm going out, I want to see if that bachelor guy finally picks the girl with sense. She died 2 days later, just before sunrise. I held her hand until it went cold, and as the funeral casserole started arriving, my phone buzzed with texts that all sounded the same. We need to talk about the estate. Om. The will reading. The will reading was set for the following Thursday at 10 a.m. at a small law office downtown, the kind in an old brick building with a creaky elevator and stale coffee in the waiting room. The attorney's name was Allison Parker. She was maybe late 30s, dark blazer, sensible flats, and the kind of expression that said she'd seen every kind of family ugly there was. I got there early, because of course I did. I wore a black dress from Target, the one I'd also worn to the funeral, and clutched a notebook I wasn't sure I'd actually need. It made me feel like I had some control. By 10:05, the circus showed up, Uncle Rob, in a suit that definitely hadn't been dry cleaned since my grandfather's funeral. Aunt Denise, in a black wrap dress and heels too high for those cracked sidewalks, dabbing at non-existent tears with a tissue. My cousin Tyler, who lived in Nashville now and wore a slim-fit blazer like he thought someone from a talent agency might be hiding behind the ficus. Even my younger brother Ryan had flown in from Tampa, sporting a tan and a hoodie from some tech startup. They filled the waiting room with their perfume, cologne, and buzzing anxiety. "Madison," Aunt Denise cooed, pulling me into a hug that smelled like Bath and Body Works vanilla. "You holding up okay, sweetie?" I stiffened. "I'm fine." Uncle Rob clapped a too-hard hand on my shoulder. "You did so much for Mom at the end. We're all so grateful." The words sounded rehearsed, like he'd practiced in the car. Before I could respond, the receptionist opened the door to the conference room. "You can all come in now. Miss Parker is ready." We filed into a small room with beige walls and a single long table. Legal pads stacked neatly in the middle. A little dish of mints no one touched. Allison stood as we entered. "Thank you all for coming. First of all, I'd like to extend my condolences for your loss." Ruth spoke very highly of her family. Aunt Denise sniffled extra loud at that. We all sat. I ended up on one side of the table, directly across from Allison. Everyone else filled in around me. Allison adjusted her glasses, opened a folder thick with papers, and began. "Ruth executed this will approximately 8 months ago," she said. "She did so in my office, with 2 disinterested adult witnesses present. She appeared to understand the nature of her assets and the effect of the document she was signing." She glanced up. "I will read the relevant portions aloud, and then I'll provide copies." Uncle Rob leaned back, hands folded over his stomach. Aunt Denise angled her chair slightly towards him, as if they were watching a show. Allison started with the standard language about debts and funeral expenses. My mind drifted briefly to the GoFundMe Aunt Denise had made for the funeral costs, even though Grandma's insurance had covered almost all of it. Then Allison's voice sharpened. "As to my real property located at 417 Maple Drive and all improvements and contents therein, I devise and bequeath said property outright to my granddaughter, Madison Cole." The room went silent. Then Tyler blurted, "Wait, the house? All of it?" Allison didn't flinch. "Yes, the residence and its contents go to Miss Cole," she continued. "As to my savings account at Buckeye Community Credit Union, my 2 certificates of deposit, and the funds in my brokerage account with Ameri Invest, I give 70% of those liquid assets to my granddaughter, Madison Cole, to be hers absolutely." My heart started pounding loud enough I was sure everyone could hear it. "Of the remaining 30%, Allison went on, 10% shall go to my grandson, Ryan Cole, 10% to my son, Robert Cole, 10% to my daughter, Denise Miller." She read a few more small bequests. Grandpa's watch to Tyler, a set of antique dishes to my cousin Megan, donations to church. But the headline was clear. The house, the bulk of the cash, they were mine. When she finished, Allison closed the folder. "That is the primary distribution outlined in this will." The silence that followed felt heavy, thick, like the air just before a tornado siren starts. Aunt Denise was the first to speak. "Madison," she said slowly, her voice syrupy, sweet. "Did you know about this?" Every pair of eyes turned to me. I swallowed. She told me she'd talked to a lawyer. I didn't know the percentages. Uncle Rob's face was turning the color of raw hamburger. "She left you the house." "Yes," Allison said calmly. "Mrs. Cole was very clear about that." His gaze snapped to the attorney. "But that doesn't make sense. We're her children. Equal distribution is standard, right?" "Equal distribution is common," Allison replied, "but it is not required. As long as the testator," she tapped the will, "was of sound mind and not under undue influence, she is legally entitled to distribute her assets as she sees fit." "Sound mind?" Aunt Denise's voice hitched. "You saw her. She was forgetting things all the time. She had that sundowning." Allison folded her hands. When she signed this document, she was able to name all of her children and grandchildren, describe her property, and explain very clearly why she was making the choices she was making. I made contemporaneous notes to that effect, which I can submit to the court if necessary. My brother Ryan spoke up for the first time, his tone trying to be light. "Look, I'm not trying to start drama, but 70% to one grandkid feels extreme." "No offense, Mads." "None taken," I lied. Allison slid copies of the will across the table. "You are all entitled to review this with your own counsel if you wish. This will be submitted to probate with the Franklin County Probate Court. If anyone intends to contest it, there are formal procedures for doing so." The words "contest it" seemed to light something in Aunt Denise's eyes. "We just want what's fair," she said, clutching her tissue. "Mom always said she believed in fairness." Allison's polite smile didn't move. Fairness can mean different things to different people. Mrs. Cole was very aware that Madison had been her primary caregiver for the last several years. She felt strongly that should be recognized. My cheeks burned. I hated that my care was suddenly some kind of bargaining chip. Uncle Rob's jaw clenched. "So what you're saying is, my mother was manipulated on her deathbed into giving everything to the granddaughter who happened to be there." The words sliced through me. "I didn't manipulate her," I said quietly. "I was there because no one else was." Tyler made a small scoffing noise. Allison's gaze sharpened. "Mr. Cole, if you're alleging undue influence, that is a serious accusation. You would need to provide evidence that—" "I'm not alleging anything," he snapped. "I'm stating facts. Mom wasn't herself, and now my kids are supposed to get nothing while Madison gets a free house?" "There it was. Dad," Tyler muttered, embarrassed. "You said you didn't care about the money. That was before I found out I'm getting 10% of whatever's left after they give everything to your cousin who lives 10 minutes away and couldn't be bothered to invite us over for Sunday dinner." I stared at him. "I invited you all the time. You always had a golf thing, or Tyler's showcase, or Denise's brunch." Aunt Denise held up her hands in a peace sign gesture. "Okay, everyone needs to calm down. This isn't what Mom would have wanted. She would want us to stick together." There it was, the first "what Mom would want" card on the table. Allison glanced at me, then at the rest of them. "Why don't you all take some time to process this? If you have further questions, my contact information is—" But they weren't listening, because their eyes weren't on Allison anymore. They were on me. IV. Tinthan Ngia Talk? American Edition. The ambush started small. That afternoon, my phone lit up with a string of texts from Aunt Denise. "We should meet just as a family. No lawyers? We can figure out a fair plan together. How about dinner at Olive Garden on Saturday?" My treat. If that had been all, maybe I would have chalked it up to grief and awkwardness. But then Grandma's neighbor, Mrs. Martinez, texted me. Mija, your aunt just stopped by Ruth's. Said they're having a family meeting about the house. Be careful, okay? My stomach dropped. Saturday at Olive Garden, I walked in to find they'd already ordered a bottle of cheap red wine and an appetizer sampler. Tyler waved me over. Mads? Breadsticks? I slid into the booth next to Ryan. The vinyl squeaked under my dress. So, Aunt Denise said, folding her napkin with forced cheerfulness, we're all raw right now, emotions high, but we're family. She looked around the table as if daring anyone to disagree. We can figure this out like adults. Uncle Rob nodded vigorously. Exactly. No need to drag outsiders into this. By outsiders, he meant Allison, the lawyer my grandmother had specifically chosen. I took a sip of water. What exactly are we figuring out? Aunt Denise reached into her purse and pulled out a manila envelope. Alarm bells blared in my head. Your grandma's estate is substantial, she said carefully. Between the house and the accounts, none of us expected her to have that much tucked away. She lived like she was broke, Tyler muttered. Who knew she had investments? Your grandmother believed in saving, I said. She also had CDs from when Grandpa was alive. He did the union thing, remember? And we're so grateful, Aunt Denise said quickly. The thing is, Madison, no one is saying you don't deserve something. Of course you do. But you're young, you're working, you can always make more money. Your dad and I, her eyes glistened. This was supposed to be our safety net. I stared at her. Nana literally told Allison she wanted me to have the house and most of the savings because I've been supporting her. There's notes in the file. We're not trying to override that, she lied. We just want to adjust things so everyone gets a fair share. Uncle Rob chimed in. Here's what we're thinking. The house goes in a family trust. That way, no one person controls it. We can decide together whether to sell it, rent it out, whatever. Income gets split equally. Makes sense, right? My brother shifted uncomfortably next to me. I mean, that sounds fair in theory, but it's not what she wrote. Tyler leaned forward. Dude, do you really want to be the cousin who keeps a whole house while everyone else gets crumbs? You're not that person. Guilt prickled at my skin. Maybe I was being selfish. But then I remembered Grandma's swollen ankles, her shaky voice, her begging me not to sign anything. Can I see what's in the envelope? I asked. Aunt Denise brightened. Of course, sweetie. We had a friend of a friend help draw something up. Nothing official yet. Just a memorandum of understanding. She said the last part like it tasted sophisticated in her mouth. She slid a stack of papers across the table. The top sheet was titled, Family Estate Agreement. Ruth Cole. I scanned the first paragraphs, legal-ish wording. A lot of whereas and heretofore. Then my eyes landed on the key section. Madison Cole hereby agrees to disclaim and reassign any and all rights, title, and interest she may have in the real property located at 417 Maple Drive, and to transfer such rights into the Cole Family Trust. My throat went dry. This isn't just an agreement, I said slowly. This is me giving up the house. Aunt Denise smiled too fast. Temporarily, honey. It's just so the trust holds it for all of us. You'll get your share. We're thinking maybe 25% for you. That's very generous, considering the original will. That leaves 75% split between you, Uncle Rob, and Ryan, I asked. Ryan frowned. Wait. You said I'd get an equal share. You will, Aunt Denise said smoothly. Equal with us. Your blood. And I'm not? I asked. Silence. Uncle Rob cleared his throat. Look, it's not about that. It's about generations. The house has been in the family since your grandfather bought it. It's a legacy. It shouldn't just belong to one person, especially someone who might sell it to move to, I don't know, Seattle for a job. Tyler snorted. She totally would. I felt my shoulders tightening. Grandma literally told me she wanted me to have the house, to live in it, or sell it, or do whatever I needed. She said she didn't want you to, I nodded at Rob and Denise, to use the word fair to bully me into giving it up. Their faces shuddered for a half second, a flicker of guilt, annoyance. Then the show resumed. Madison, Aunt Denise said, dropping her voice. You know how this will look. You already look like you took advantage. People will talk. Oh, the granddaughter swooped in and took the house and all the money. You really want that hanging over you at Thanksgiving for the rest of your life? If there is a Thanksgiving, Tyler added, because I'm not flying home to eat turkey in a house you stole. I didn't steal anything, I said, heat rising in my chest. Grandma made a legal decision with a lawyer. You all could have been there more. You chose not to. Uncle Rob's mouth twisted. We were busy working, providing. We didn't have the luxury of working from home in yoga pants, dropping everything for every little cough. The words punched me in the gut. Ryan shifted next to me. That's not fair. Maddie was with her almost every day. You guys barely... Stay out of it. Ryan, Aunt Denise snapped, then softened her tone. Sweetheart, we're doing this for all of you. If we fight this, the lawyers will eat everything. Probate court, contests. It could drag on for years. You want that? Or do you want to sign one piece of paper so everything's peaceful? There it was. The American version of Tintan Nghiatok. We're family. Don't be selfish. Don't shame us. Sign. I stared at the signature line, my name neatly typed underneath. My heart pounded so loud I could feel every beat in my throat. I heard Grandma's voice in my head. No signing anything on the spot. No, okay, fine, if it makes everyone happy. I took a slow breath. Let me take this home and look it over, I said finally. I want my own lawyer to see it. Uncle Rob's face darkened. We don't need outsiders. Rob, Aunt Denise warned, then turned back to me, smile back in place. Of course, honey, take a look, but we really should move fast. The longer this drags out, the harder it will be. For everyone. Tyler muttered, no pressure, though. Just loud enough for me to hear. I slid the papers back into the envelope and set it beside my plate. Okay, I said. I'll be in touch. They all visibly relaxed, as if I'd already agreed. They had no idea that the first thing I did when I got home was open my laptop and Google Probate Lawyer Franklin County Free Consultation. V. Allison 2.0 and Grandma's video. Walking back into Allison Parker's office alone felt different than the will reading. Less like stepping into a firing squad, more like stepping into an exam room. She greeted me with a firm handshake and a glass of water. I'm glad you came in, Madison. I had a feeling your family might not take your grandmother's decisions well. I handed her the manila envelope. Understatement of the year. She slid the papers out, skimmed the first page, then flipped through with growing impatience. When she reached the signature line, she actually let out a short, humorless laugh. Oh, this is cute, she said. Cute? I repeated. It's an attempted estate grab disguised as a family agreement. She tapped a paragraph with her pen. If you sign this, you are effectively disclaiming your inheritance and reassigning it to a trust they control. There's no guarantee you'd ever see your so-called share. They could decide to borrow against the house, let it fall into disrepair, or sell it, and justify any distribution they want as expenses. My stomach churned. They made it sound like just a formality, like I'd still own. You'd own nothing, she said flatly. The trust would own the house. And look here. She pointed to a line halfway down the page. They even have you waiving your right to contest past or future distributions. Which means, if they screw you over, you've voluntarily given up your right to challenge it in court. The paper blurred in my vision. So this is bad. It's terrible, she said. Legally sloppy, but terrible. The good news is, you haven't signed it. And based on your grandmother's will, you don't need to sign anything at all to get what she left you. Probate will handle the transfer. I exhaled for what felt like the first time all week. They said if I didn't sign, they'd contest the will, that lawyers would take everything. Allison nodded slowly. They can try to contest, yes, but they'd need grounds. We have my notes from her capacity assessment. We have dated records of our meetings, and, she tilted her head, your grandmother mentioned a video, didn't she? My heart lurched. She said she recorded one, gave you a copy. There's also one on her phone. Allison opened a drawer, pulled out a USB drive, and plugged it into her computer. She asked me to keep this on file in case of exactly this scenario. She said, "Would you like to watch it?" I swallowed around the lump in my throat. Yes. She clicked. The screen flickered, and suddenly there was Grandma Ruth, sitting upright in Allison's conference chair, wearing her favorite pink cardigan, glasses perched on her nose. "Is it on?" she asked off camera. "Yes, ma'am," Allison's voice replied. "Whenever you're ready." Grandma looked straight into the camera. "Well," she said, "if you're watching this, it means some of my relatives have opinions about my will. So let me make this plain." She folded her hands in her lap. "I, Ruth Cole, am not confused. I may forget where I put my reading glasses, but I know who showed up when it mattered. My granddaughter Madison has been the one taking care of me. She took me to my appointments. She paid for my groceries when my Social Security check ran short. She slept on my couch when my heart scared me at night." She sniffed, eyes misty. "My children love me in their own way," she said, "but they have their lives. They made choices. Madison should not be punished because she chose to be here. So I am leaving her the house and most of my savings. That is my decision. No one pressured me. No one put ideas in my head. If they tell you otherwise, they're lying or they're angry." She leaned closer to the camera, eyes suddenly sharp. "And if anyone dares to guilt her into signing anything to keep the peace, you tell them Ruth said absolutely not. Peace built on bullying is not peace. It's cowardice. My girl has earned her rest. Let her have it." The video ended on her stern face. I wiped my cheeks with the back of my hand. She really said all that. "She did," Allison said quietly, "and it's time-stamped, witnessed, and notarized as a statement. The court doesn't have to consider it, but most judges will give it weight as evidence of her intent and mental clarity." I sat back, the shakiness slowly replaced by something else, anger, resolve. "So what do I do?" I asked. "With the trust, the threats, all of it?" Allison's eyes met mine. "You stop playing defense," she said. "You tell them you will not be signing anything. You let them file whatever garbage objections they want. And when we go to the probate hearing, you show up with counsel and your grandmother's video." I hesitated. "Won't they just say the video is fake? Or that you coerced her? Or that I don't know, filmed it and deep faked it or something?" Allison actually smiled. "They can say whatever they want. The question is what they can prove. And from what I've seen, they have emotional manipulation and entitlement. We have documentation." She slid the trust papers back into the envelope and pushed it toward me. "Keep this," she said. "Do not sign it. Do not mark it up. It's better for us if it stays exactly as is. It shows intent. Intent? Intent to pressure you into giving up your inheritance, she said, which a judge is going to love hearing about. My palms were damp, so I just tell them no, and then wait for court? She considered me carefully. They're going to escalate. Threats, guilt, maybe even trying to get you alone with more papers. Are you ready for that? I thought of Grandma's raspy voice. Promise me. No, okay, fine if it makes everyone happy. I straightened my shoulders. I'm ready, I said. For the first time since the funeral, I meant it. 6. The meltdown before the hearing. The probate hearing was set for a Tuesday morning a month later. In that month, my family went from concerned and sad to full-on mob. First came the text storm. Rob, we're really disappointed you're dragging this out. Denise, honey, this isn't like you. You've always been such a peacemaker. Tyler, Grandma would be heartbroken you're making this about money. When I didn't respond, the call started. I let them go to voicemail. Then came the surprise visit. It was a rainy Saturday. I was in leggings and a hoodie, hair in a bun, knee-deep in a closet clean out at Grandma's, my house. I'd been sorting her clothes into donate and keep piles, the TV playing some mindless HGTV show in the background. The doorbell rang. Expecting Amazon, I patted down the hallway in socks and opened the door. Uncle Rob, Aunt Denise, and Tyler stood on the porch, rain dripping off their umbrellas onto the welcome mat that still said, "Bless this mess." My chest tightened. You can't just show up. We texted, Aunt Denise said, stepping forward uninvited. You didn't answer. What choice did we have? I blocked the doorway. You have the choice to respect boundaries. Tyler rolled his eyes. Since when do you talk like a TikTok therapist? We're family, Maddie. There it was again, the magic word they thought could unlock any door. We're not doing this, I said, not without my lawyer present. Uncle Rob bristled. Good God, listen to yourself. Lawyer this, lawyer that. We're just here to talk, face to face, like human beings. Aunt Denise put a hand on my arm, nails digging in just a little. Sweetie, please, let us in. We brought coffee. She held up a cardboard tray of Starbucks cups like peace offerings. For half a second I wavered. Old habits die hard. Then I saw the edge of more papers peeking out of Denise's oversized handbag. I stepped back, but not to let them in. To grab my phone from the console table. I'm happy to talk on the porch, I said, but I'm recording this, just so we're all clear. Their expressions shifted. Guilt, annoyance, fear. What, you don't trust us? Tyler scoffed. I hit record. Honestly? No. Uncle Rob's face went beet red. This is ridiculous. You're treating us like criminals. Then you should have no problem with the record, I said. He clenched his jaw, breathing hard. Fine. You want to do it this way? Here it is. We spoke to a lawyer, too. He says if we can show Mom was not in her right mind, we can contest the will. He says the court will see you as a caregiver with undue influence. You know what that means, Madison? It means you could lose everything. The house, the accounts, all of it. Aunt Denise jumped in. We don't want that. We don't want to fight. But we will if you keep forcing our hand. We're giving you an off-ramp. Sign the trust agreement. We don't file anything. And we all move on. You keep 25% of the house sale. That's a huge amount for someone your age. Plus your 70% of the savings, Tyler added. We'd only reduce that a little to make it even. You'd still walk away with something. The rain drummed on the porch roof. My phone felt heavy in my hand. You're threatening to try to take everything, unless I agree to give up most of it now, I said. Do you hear yourselves? Aunt Denise's eyes filled with tears right on cue. We're just trying to make this right. This isn't what Mom would have wanted. She told me once, years ago, that she believed in splitting everything equally among her children. Funny, I said, because 8 months ago, sitting in a lawyer's office, she said on video that she wanted me to have the house and most of the money, that she was not confused, that anyone who said otherwise was lying or angry. Their faces froze. Tyler blinked. What video? I shrugged. You'll see. Uncle Rob stepped forward, jabbing a finger in my direction. Listen to me. You think some video is going to override decades of family? You think a judge is going to look at a caregiver who ended up with the lion's share and say, "Oh yeah, that seems normal"? You're naive, Madison. Courts look at patterns. They'll see a lonely old woman and a granddaughter who needed a leg up, and they'll fill in the rest. Heat flared in my chest. I have text messages, I said evenly. From you, thanking me for taking Mom to appointments you were too swamped to attend. I have your Facebook post praising me as an angel and a saint for being there. I have bank records showing I paid her utility bills when she fell behind from my own account. Do you really want all of that written to the record? Their eyes flickered. For the first time, I saw it. Their fear, not of losing Grandma, of losing the narrative. Aunt Denise dropped the coffee tray onto the porch railing, cups sloshing. You are being so ungrateful, she hissed. We changed your diapers. We took you school shopping. We gave you Christmases. And this is how you repay us? Something in me snapped. No, I said, voice steady. Grandma gave me Christmases. You gave me Target gift cards and left early to hit the mall. You all had 30 years to build a relationship with her. You chose golf trips and brunches. I chose this house and her oxygen machine and the smell of hospital antiseptic in my hair. Do not pretend we loved her the same way. Their faces hardened. We'll see you in court, Uncle Rob said finally. Bring snacks, I replied. He jerked back as if I'd slapped him. They turned and stomped off the porch, muttering. As they reached the sidewalk, Tyler spun around. When this all blows up in your face, he shouted, don't come crying to us. You'll have no family left. The screen door swung shut behind me. I locked it. And for the first time in my life, the idea of having no family left felt less like a threat and more like a promise. 7th, probate court. Probate court is not glamorous. If you're picturing some dramatic mahogany courtroom from a legal drama, forget it. The Franklin County Probate Court is beige tiles, fluorescent lighting, and a waiting area with chairs that feel like they were ordered in bulk off a government catalog website. The morning of the hearing, I wore a navy blazer over a white blouse, black slacks, and flats. Allison had told me, dress like you're going to a serious job interview. She met me in the lobby, carrying a neat file folder and a comb I tried to borrow. You ready? She asked. No, I said honestly, but I'm here. That's half the battle, she said, and led me through security. In the hallway outside courtroom 3B, I spotted them. Uncle Rob, in the same ill-fitting suit. Aunt Denise, in a navy dress this time, clutching a fake leather portfolio like it contained the Constitution. Tyler, in a too-tight dress shirt with no tie. Ryan, standing slightly apart from them, eyes down, hands shoved deep in his pockets. I caught his eye. He gave me a tiny, apologetic half smile. Their attorney was easy to spot. A man in his 50s with a cheap briefcase and a loud tie. The kind of lawyer you find on a bench ad with a slogan like, "We mean business." He glanced at me, then at Allison, and something in his gaze shifted, an internal recalculation. So that's who she hired. We were called into the courtroom, a square room with pale walls, an elevated bench, and a state flag drooping in the corner. The judge, a woman in her early 50s with sharp eyes and a calm presence, took the bench. Good morning, she said, voice echoed by the microphone. We're here on the matter of the estate of Ruth Cole, case number. She rattled off digits. We have a petition to admit the will, and we have objections filed by the decedent's children, Robert Cole and Denise Miller. Counsel, please identify yourselves for the record. Allison stood. Allison Parker for the proponent of the will. Madison Cole, Your Honor. The bench ad lawyer rose. David Larkin for the objecting heirs, Robert Cole and Denise Miller. The judge nodded. Thank you. I've reviewed the pleadings and the will. Mr. Larkin, you've alleged that the decedent lacked testamentary capacity and that the will was the product of undue influence by the primary beneficiary, Ms. Cole. Is that correct? Larkin straightened. Yes, Your Honor. And Ms. Parker, you're asking the court to admit the will as drafted? Yes, Your Honor, Allison replied. We contend that Mrs. Cole had full capacity when she executed the will, and that there is no evidence of undue influence beyond the objector's speculation. The judge sighed the sigh of someone who had seen this movie many times. All right, she said. Mr. Larkin, you may proceed. He launched into a speech about a frail elderly woman, cognitive decline, and a granddaughter who suddenly ended up with a disproportionate share of the estate. He called Aunt Denise to the stand first. She walked up, swore to tell the truth, and perched on the witness chair like she was auditioning for Sad Mother in a Hallmark movie. Ms. Miller, Larkin began, how would you describe your mother's mental state in the last year of her life? Oh, she was declining, Denise said, voice trembling. She would forget conversations, misplace things, call people by the wrong names. It was heartbreaking. Did she ever express to you an intention to divide her estate equally among her children? She nodded vigorously. Many times. She always said she believed in fairness. And were you surprised to see a will that left the majority of her assets to one grandchild? Shocked, she said. It didn't sound like her. What about the relationship between your mother and Madison? Did you observe any dependence? Oh, Madison was with her all the time, Denise said. She controlled her medications, her appointments, her visitors. If we wanted to see Mom, we had to go through Madison. That was not true, but it sounded just plausible enough to sting. Did your mother ever mention feeling pressured? Larkin asked. No, Denise said, tears spilling now. But she was so afraid of being a burden. I could see it in her eyes. She would have done anything to avoid conflict. She was vulnerable. And Madison is very persuasive when she wants something. I felt Allison stiffen beside me. The judge listened, expression unreadable, jotting occasional notes. Larkin called Uncle Rob next. He talked about strange phone calls, forgetting birthdays, and how, out of character, it was for his mother not to leave everything equally to her children, like most normal parents. When Allison got her turn to cross-examine, she approached the podium calmly. Ms. Miller, she said, you testified that your mother often forgot things in the last year of her life. Do you have medical records showing a diagnosis of dementia or Alzheimer's? Denise blinked. Well, I don't have them with me. But she was old. That wasn't my question, Allison said, voice still polite. To your knowledge, did any doctor diagnose your mother with a cognitive disorder that would impair her ability to understand a legal document? Not in those words, Denise hedged, but she would get confused. You also said your mother believed in fairness, Allison continued. Is it your position that fairness can never mean recognizing the efforts of one caregiver over others? Well, we all loved her, Denise said weakly. Yes, Allison said, but who took her to the cardiologist every other Tuesday? Denise's mouth tightened. Madison did, because she lived closer. Who spent the night when your mother was afraid to be alone after a fall? Madison, she muttered. Who paid her utility bills when she fell behind? Silence. Would it surprise you to learn, Allison said, that we have bank records documenting payments from Ms. Cole's personal account to your mother's electric company, water company, and pharmacy? Denise's eyes flashed. She never told us that. So your expectation, Allison said, is that you should receive an equal share of the estate, despite doing less of the day-to-day care and contributing less financially. Is that correct? Larkin objected. Argumentative, Your Honor. The judge raised an eyebrow. Sustained. Ms. Parker, rephrase. Allison nodded. Ms. Miller, did your mother ever tell you she resented the fact that Madison was doing so much? No, Denise whispered. Did she ever tell you she felt pressured by Madison regarding her will? No. Thank you. No further questions. Uncle Rob did not fare much better. Allison brought up his text calling me a saint and a lifesaver, which he tried to pass off as just expressions. Then it was my turn. Ms. Cole, the judge said, please take the stand. My legs felt like jelly as I walked up. I raised my hand, swore to tell the truth, and sat down. Larkin approached like a shark smelling blood. Ms. Cole, he began, you were your grandmother's primary caregiver, correct? Yes, I said. How often would you say you saw her? Almost every day in the last year, I replied. Sometimes multiple times a day. And during that time you had access to her medications, her mail, her phone? Yes, I said cautiously, as part of helping her manage her life. He nodded like he'd landed a point. Would you describe your grandmother as dependent on you? Yes, I said, because she was 91 and physically frail. She needed help. And you knew, he pressed, that she had a house that was paid off, and savings and CDs. I knew she had a house, I said. She'd lived in it my whole life. I didn't know the exact amounts in her accounts until after the will was read. But you understood there was value there, he said. You understood that if she left it to you, you'd be in a much better financial position. Yes or no? My skin prickled. Generally, yes, I said. That's how inheritance works. He pounced. So you had motive. Objection, Allison cut in. Counsel is testifying. Sustained, the judge said. Mr. Larkin, please stick to questions. He changed tactics. Did you ever discuss your grandmother's will with her before she met with Ms. Parker? He asked. She brought it up once, I said. She said she wanted to change it. And did you suggest she leave you the house? He asked. No, I said. I told her we didn't have to talk about it. She insisted. Did you drive her to Ms. Parker's office? Yes, I said. She asked me to drop her off and pick her up later. I waited in the car. He looked at the judge, then back at me. You didn't go into the meeting? No, I said. Ms. Parker doesn't allow beneficiaries in the room when wills are drafted. Larkin's jaw tightened. He clearly hadn't wanted me to know that detail. He stared at his notes, then tried one more angle. Ms. Cole, he said, do you love your grandmother? My eyes burned. Yes. Would you say she trusted you more than anyone else? Yes, I whispered. And if she believed that giving you most of her estate would make you happy, do you think she would have done it, even if it wasn't truly what she wanted? The question sat there, heavy and manipulative. I think, I said slowly, that my grandmother was stubborn. If she didn't want something, she didn't do it. Ask anyone who ever tried to get her to stop bringing 3 pies to Thanksgiving. A few people in the courtroom chuckled. Even the judge's mouth twitched. Larkin scowled. No further questions. All right, the judge said. Ms. Parker? Allison stood, a glint in her eye. We'd like to introduce a piece of evidence, Your Honor. A video recorded in my office the same day Mrs. Cole executed her will. in which she explains her reasoning in her own words. Larkin immediately objected. Hearsay, Your Honor. Unreliable. Prejudicial? The judge held up a hand. Let me see it. Allison approached the bench, handed up a USB drive, and waited while the court clerk fiddled with the laptop connected to a small screen mounted on the wall. The video flickered to life, and there she was again. Grandma Ruth, in her pink cardigan, glasses, hair done by Mrs. Martinez, the neighbor. Is it on? She asked. Yes, ma'am. Whenever you're ready, Allison's previous voice said. We watched the same message I'd seen in Allison's office, but now it was in a courtroom, on the record. My granddaughter Madison has been the one taking care of me. She took me to my appointments. She should not be punished because she chose to be here. I am leaving her the house and most of my savings. No one pressured me. No one put ideas in my head. If they tell you otherwise, they're lying or they're angry. Peace built on bullying is not peace. My girl has earned her rest. Let her have it. The room was so quiet, you could hear the hum of the fluorescent lights. When the video ended, the judge sat back, steepling her fingers. Mr. Larkin, she asked, this appears to be your decedent in the office of a licensed attorney, explaining her wishes. Do you have any evidence that this video is doctored, or that Ms. Parker somehow coerced her into making these statements? Larkin floundered. Well, Your Honor, we haven't had an opportunity to have the video forensically examined. You filed your objection 6 weeks ago, the judge said sharply. This video was disclosed to you 4 weeks ago. Did you make any attempt to have it examined? He swallowed. Not yet, Your Honor. But the point remains. The point, she interrupted, is that your client's entire case rests on the idea that their mother was confused and manipulated. What I see is a woman who knows who her granddaughter is, knows the nature of her assets, and articulates a clear and rational reason for favoring the person who provided the most care. She turned to Denise and Rob. Do you have any evidence, medical records, witness testimony, anything, showing that your mother lacked capacity on the date she signed this will? Denise and Rob looked at each other, panicking silently. We just know she was forgetful, Rob stammered. She called me by the dog's name once. The judge's face remained impassive. That describes half my docket, she said dryly. Memory lapses are not the same as lack of testamentary capacity. She shuffled some papers, then looked back at us. Here's what I see, she said. An elderly woman who understood she was near the end of her life. One granddaughter who provided extensive care, both time and money. Children who, for whatever reasons, were less present. A will drafted by a competent attorney, executed with the proper formalities. A contemporaneous video confirming her intent. And heirs who are unhappy with the distribution. Her gaze sharpened. Unhappiness is not a legal basis to overthrow a valid will. The words sank into the silence, like stones in a lake. Accordingly, she continued, the court finds that the objectors have not met their burden to establish lack of capacity or undue influence. The objection is overruled. The will of Ruth Cole, dated 8 months prior to her death, is admitted to probate as her valid last will and testament. I exhaled shakily. In addition, the judge added, the court takes a very dim view of attempts to pressure beneficiaries into signing away their inheritance under the guise of family agreements. Should there be any further evidence of harassment, intimidation, or attempts to circumvent this order, the court will consider appropriate sanctions. She glanced pointedly at Rob and Denise. Ms. Cole, she said, turning to me, her tone softening. You honored your grandmother in life. This court has a duty to honor her wishes in death. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for accepting what she chose to give you. My throat closed up. Thank you, Your Honor, I managed. The gavel came down with a sharp crack. Case closed. 8. Aftermath. And a new kind of family. The hallway outside the courtroom felt surreal. The fluorescent lights, the faint smell of cleaning chemicals, the echo of footsteps. My family clustered at one end, whispering fiercely. Tyler's face was red. Aunt Denise dabbed at her smeared mascara. Uncle Rob looked like someone had kicked his dog. Ryan stood off to the side, looking completely wrung out. He caught my eye and walked over, hands raised in a small, surrendering gesture. I didn't know they were going to do all that, he blurted. The trust? The lawyer ads? I thought they were just going to ask the judge to tweak things, not accuse you of manipulating Nana. I studied his face, the kid I used to drive to soccer practice, now with a receding hairline and stress lines at his temples. You were in on the trust, I said quietly. He flushed. They said it was the only way to keep the peace, that you still get a bunch of money, and it would just look better. I was stupid. I'm sorry. Behind him, I could feel the others watching us, weighing whether to swoop in. Your apology doesn't change what they tried, I said, or what you didn't stop. He swallowed. I know. I just didn't want to pick a side. Not picking a side is picking a side, I said. His shoulders sank. So that's it? We're done? I thought of Grandma's video, of the nights on the couch, of the way my chest had felt when the judge said, "Don't let anyone make you feel guilty." I need time, I said, and I need distance. I don't trust you, not yet, maybe not ever, but I don't hate you. I just can't keep setting myself on fire to keep everyone else warm. His eyes shone. Okay, he whispered, if you ever, I don't know, want to get coffee when I'm in town? That'll be my decision, I said, not yours, not theirs. He nodded and stepped back. As he rejoined the cluster, Aunt Denise shot me a look that could strip paint. You happy now? She snapped. You got your house? You got your money. Hope you can sleep at night knowing you tore this family apart. I met her gaze evenly. I didn't tear this family apart, I said. You did that when you decided your entitlement to my grandmother's money mattered more than respecting her choices and the work I did. The court just turned the lights on. Her mouth opened and closed. I didn't wait for another performance. Allison and I walked to the elevator in silence. When the doors closed, I let out a breath that felt like it had been lodged in my chest for months. You did well, she said. I almost threw up, I admitted. That's still doing well, she said dryly. I laughed, a little hysterically. What happens now? I asked. Now, she said, we move into the boring phase. Paperwork, title transfers, closing out accounts. We'll get you formally appointed as executor and distribute everything according to the will. No more surprises. No more trust agreements? She smiled. If they try anything like that now, send it straight to me. But I doubt they will. Judges don't often spell it out that clearly. We stepped out into the parking garage sunlight. The Ohio sky was a washed-out blue, the air brisk. I drove straight to Maple Drive. My grandma's house looked the same. The flag, the azaleas, the gnome guarding the front steps. Inside, the air still held a faint trace of her lavender lotion and old books. I walked down the hallway to her bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed where I'd spent so many nights, and let myself cry. For her. For the girl I'd been before this. For the family I thought I had, and the one I actually did. That afternoon, I opened the windows, let the spring air in, and started making the house mine. I kept the dining table where she'd hosted every Thanksgiving. I kept her recipe box, even though half the cards were stained and barely legible. I kept one of her quilts on the couch. The rest? I donated. I cleared out faded knickknacks that had meant something to her, but nothing to me. I painted the ugly brown-paneled living room a soft white. I turned the spare bedroom into a home office instead of a catch-all storage room. I hung 3 frames on the wall. A photo of Grandma and me at my high school graduation. A picture from our last Christmas together, her in a Santa hat, me laughing. A printed still from the video, her in that pink cardigan, eyes sharp and proud. Over the next months, the practical stuff fell into place. The court documents came through. The house title shifted to my name. The accounts were distributed. I paid off my lingering student loans. I set aside a chunk for emergency savings. I made an appointment with a financial planner to talk about investing. I also did something that felt even scarier than court. I made my own will. I sat in Allison's office again, this time on the other side of the desk. I don't want anyone doing to my assets what my family tried to do to Grandma's, I said. If I leave things to someone, I want it to be clear why. We drafted a document that left the house to whichever person had been my primary caregiver, if I ever needed one. If not, it went to a domestic violence shelter in town that maintained transitional housing for women starting over. Are you sure? Allison asked. Yes, I said. If there's one thing I learned from all this, it's that love and caregiving are worth more than blood and brunch photos. I also started therapy, because underneath the legal drama was something quieter and uglier. The fact that for years, I had taught my family that my boundaries were negotiable, that if they pushed hard enough, I'd fold. My therapist, a woman in her 40s who wore cardigans and Converse and had a jar of fidget toys on her desk, listened as I spilled everything. At the end of our second session, she said, "You know what impresses me most? Not that you won in court, but that you were willing to be the bad guy in your family's story, to be the hero in your own." The words lodged somewhere deep, hero in my own story. I started building a new version of family. Neighbors who dropped off casseroles that weren't about obligation, but about genuine care. Friends who helped me repaint the kitchen in exchange for pizza and wine. A coworker who lost her mom last year, who texted me on death anniversaries and said, "If you want to skip Mother's Day brunch posts this weekend, we can go hike instead." One evening, as the sun set over Maple Drive and the azaleas glowed pink in the light, I sat on the porch with a mug of tea and scrolled through my phone. There, in my deleted items, was the trust agreement. For a second, I hovered over it. Then I grinned and hit permanently delete. Goodbye. Guilt contract. Hello, freedom. If you're listening to this and thinking, I would have just signed to keep the peace, I get it. I was that person too. But here's what I know now. Peace that depends on you disappearing is not peace. Family that only shows up when there's something to grab is not family. Love that demands you sign away the things you've earned is not love. My grandmother saw me. She saw the hours, the exhaustion, the way my life had shrunk to make room for her, and she chose to honor that. Her last act was not a mistake, not senility, not manipulation. It was gratitude. And the bravest thing I did was accept it. So if you ever find yourself in a conference room, or a hospital room, or a probate court where people who never showed up are suddenly demanding, "What's fair?" I hope you remember this. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to protect what you've built. You are allowed to honor the person who chose you, even if it makes everyone else uncomfortable. Grandma Ruth's will didn't just leave me a house. It left me a backbone. And I'm not signing that away for anyone.